A single grain of rice rests on the corner square of a worn wooden chessboard. One grain, catch the warm light, it looks like nothing, it is nothing. Then look at the square beside it, 2 grains, and the next, 4, the eye barely registers the change. This is the part most people quit, not because the math fails them, but because the early squares are so quiet they feel like a mistake. There is an old story about a board like this one. It explains, better than any spreadsheet, why a handful of patient people end up with almost everything, and why the rest of us walk away too soon. The legend goes that a clever courtier presented a king with the game of chess. Delighted, the king offered any reward the man could name. The courtier asked for something modest, 1 grain of rice on the first square of the board, 2 on the second, 4 on the third, each square doubling the last all the way to the 64th. The king, hearing only grains of rice, laughed and agreed. He thought he had gotten off lightly. He had not. For the first half of the board, the request looks humble. By the 20th square, you are at roughly 1,000,000 grains, a sack of rice, a reasonable gift for a clever man. But doubling does not care how it began. It cares only that it continues. The second half of the board is where the world breaks. By the 64th square, the courtier is owed more rice than has been grown in the entire history of the planet. Enough to bury the kingdom, enough to bury several. The number is around 18 quintillion grains, a figure with 19 digits. The king, of course, could never pay it. This is the first lesson, and it is the one nobody believes until it is too late to act on it. Call it the back half of the board. Exponential growth spends most of its life looking unremarkable, and almost all of its power arrives at the very end. You have probably heard compound interest called the eighth wonder of the world. The line is usually pinned to Albert Einstein. He never said it, there is no record of those words in anything he wrote or spoke. The quotation is a costume we dressed a genius in, because the idea felt too important to belong to no one. I tell you this not to be pedantic, but because the fiction is revealing. We wanted compounding to come stamped with authority. We wanted to be told it was magic by the smartest man of the century. But compounding does not need Einstein. It does not need to be wondrous. It needs only to be left alone. Here is the mechanism stripped bare. Your gains begin to earn gains. The interest earns interest. The branch grows a smaller branch, which grows another, and the tree thickens from the inside. A seedling does not look like a strategy. For years it is a thin green thing you could snap between 2 fingers. The growth is real, but it is invisible because it is happening underground. Call this idea the silent root. The most important work compounding does is the work you cannot see, in the years when nothing appears to be happening. And this is precisely where the human problem begins, because we are built to respond to what we can see. There is a metaphor that gets closer to the truth than any percentage sign: the snowball. Picture a single handful of snow packed tight at the very top of a long hill. You set it rolling. For the first stretch, it is almost comically small. It gathers a thin skin of snow, then a little more. Each turn adds only a little, but each turn also makes the ball larger, so the next turn adds more than the last. 2 things matter, and only 2. The snow must be sticky enough to gather, and the hill must be long enough to let it. Sticky snow is your rate of return, the quality of what you own, but the hill is time. And the hill is the part almost everyone gets wrong. We obsess over the snow, the hot stock, the clever trade, the extra 2%. We spend almost no thought on the hill, on simply staying on the slope long enough for the snow to do its work. Call this the tyranny of the hill. A modest return over a very long time will humble a spectacular return over a short one. Patience is not a virtue here, it is the entire engine. And there is no shortcut. You cannot pay to make the hill longer. You cannot work harder to skip the boring middle. The hill is made of years, and years can only be waited. If you want to see a long hill in human form, consider Warren Buffett. He is held up as the great stock picker, the oracle, the man with an unteachable eye for value. Some of that is true, but it hides the more useful fact. Buffett bought his first stock at 11. He has been compounding for more than 80 years. He is not merely good at investing, he is old at investing, and that is not a smaller thing. The arithmetic is startling. The overwhelming majority of his net worth was earned after his 50th birthday. A very large share of it arrived after 65, an age when most people have stopped entirely. The writer Morgan Housel made the sharp observation, Buffett's skill is investing, but his secret is time. Had he started in his 30s and retired in his 60s like a sensible person, you would never have heard his name. He was standing on the back half of the board. The same numbers that made the courtier impossible to pay made Buffett impossible to ignore. He simply refused to step off the hill. Call this the discipline of staying. The rarest skill in finance is not insight. It is the temperament to do very little for a very long time while the early years insult your patience. Most people cannot. The boredom is unbearable. The first decade feels like standing in a field, watching a twig, being told it is a forest. So the magic, it turns out, is not magic. It is a curve. And the cruelty of the curve is that it withholds nearly all of its reward until the very end. This is why so few people ever feel it, not because they lacked the rice or the snow or the seed. They had all three. What they lacked was the stomach to wait through the flat and silent years, when the work was real but the proof had not yet arrived. The early squares are not a failure. They are the price of admission to the later ones. The boredom is not a sign that nothing is working. It is the sign that everything is. If there is anything to do with this, it is small and unglamorous. Begin earlier than feels reasonable. Choose snow that sticks. And then, hardest of all, find a way to leave the snowball alone. That is the calm at the center of this. You are not behind. You are early on a long board, and early is the only place the magic can begin. If these quiet hours are worth something to you, you can stay on this hill with us. New essays arrive twice a week. No noise, just the slow accounting of what actually matters. The grain on the first square never looks like a fortune. It is only the patience to reach the 64th that makes it one. Wealth is not what you have, it's what you no longer need to chase. Until next time.